Well, folks, both former Vice President Mike Pence and former New Jersey Governor Christie will run for president in 2024. So you know what that means? Relatively nothing, except somewhere in what I assume is a very boring room watching beige paint dry, Nikki Haley is celebrating as she is now not the most embarrassing and delusional candidate in the running. Maybe. But speaking of running, here is Christie revving up the crowd in New Hampshire.
But I have to tell you, as I've watched the last year evolve, there's been just one question that kept going back and back and back into my mind. And it was about our country and its future. And I wondered what our choice was going to be. Were we going to be small or were we going to be big?
Too easy, just too easy there. I don't know who wrote that for him, but they really did him dirty. But also, it was kind of the high point of his announcement speech because he went on to say pretty much nothing else. Oh, except he supports funding Ukraine in perpetuity. But other than that, just a lot of huffing and puffing and trying to make 2012 cool again, trying to make fetch happen, if you will. But you know who has confidence in old Christie? The ladies of The View. Listen to this.
Christie in 2016, he finished 6th in the New Hampshire primary.
Yeah.
But you know what? I think he can take on Trump easier than the others because he's from New Jersey.
Yeah, you got it, Joy. You know, that woman, I tell you what, she lives in her own little world. First, she declares that she, a white woman, knows the plight of black men in America better than actual American black man Tim Scott, and now she thinks Christie can take on Donald Trump. Joy, as a Republican, I can tell you this. Christie is not a threat to Trump, and neither is Mike Pence, who has thrown his hat in the ring as well. And again, I have to wonder what these people are drinking or smoking to make them think, to make them truly believe they have a shot at the nomination or much less the White House. Perhaps the only person with less of a chance at the nomination or presidency than Nikki Haley or Christie is Mike Pence. Most conservatives don't like him. Most Trump supporters hate his guts, and his staunch socially conservative stances are nothing but fodder for mockery for those on the left. He literally has no base of support, none. I mean, maybe Liz Cheney, but that's about it. Both Pence and Christie will run their races, if you can even call them that, on anti-Trump bravado and long-abandoned establishment Republican talking points that expired in 2012. The anti-Trump stuff will get them maybe an inch with Democrats and liberals and people who hate Trump, and that's about it. The only serious alternative to Donald Trump is Ron DeSantis. We all know it. Now, these people have every right to run. Don't get me wrong. It's a free country, at least for now. But all these Republicans jumping into the race are really kidding themselves. It is a Don versus Ron race, and the rest of them are delusional at best. You know, I think Haley and Scott want to be vice presidential picks. Vivek wants some social clout and some name ID. And Pence and Christie, you know, I think they just want Trump to notice them, and it's kind of weird, really. This primary race is going to be a circus, but it won't be boring, except for Nikki Haley, because, of course, she is always boring. So about a week ago, I received an anonymous tip from a Metro Nashville city employee, and at first I couldn't believe my eyes. Was our great city, more accurately our taxpayers, about to foot the bill for city employees to receive gender reassignment? Yeah, you betcha, that was the plan. Now, luckily, the vote on this failed yesterday, but there's a whole lot more to this story. Turns out, according to my next guest, the mayor himself, John Chicken Cooper, a man I despise ever since he locked down our city and then raised our property taxes 34% to cover his ass, was the one pushing for this. Here to give us the scoop is Nashville Metro Council District 11 candidate Jeff Eastlick. All right, Jeff, so I got this as a tip. And at first, I wanted to make sure I read it correctly. I was like, gender reassignment, I mean, that was number one, that apparently city employees were petitioning to have this part of their coverage. Of course, it's paid for by our taxpayers. But after I dug into this a little more, and after talking to you, this isn't the first time this has come up. So explain the background on this. How did we get here where a place like Nashville, a blue city in a very red state, is now advocating for employees to receive taxpayer-funded gender reassignment care?
I found out about it because of a survey I got as a candidate. And the question was, would I support government-funded reassignment surgery? So I started looking to find other cities and what the coverage plan was currently. And when I looked at the National Metro Benefit Plan, I noticed that there was a board meeting coming up. I clicked on the agenda, and there it was at the very top. So yesterday when I went to speak, I didn't know it had come up before, but they said right before I started to speak that they needed to check the procedures. And I went and sat back down while they made sure that this wasn't going to be done improperly so that they would have to start over and do it again. So I wasn't there or aware of the first vote, but it had come up before. And as far as I know, it will come up again.
So who is pushing for this? Who is pushing for this to be on the agenda? I mean, is it the employees? Is it the council? Is it the current mayor? Who wants this coverage?
I asked the administrator of the benefits board, how did this get on there? And she said back that it was the secretary of the mayor. So the mayor wanted it on there.
So that's very interesting to me that the mayor is advocating for something like this. I don't know if that's generally how it goes, that the mayor is advocating for coverage for certain things. I mean, when we talk about coverage for city employees, a lot of this is kind of, the doldrums. We don't really get into the monotony of all of it. That's not really any of us that are not employees of Metro Nashville probably don't really care. But when we look at gender reassignment being number one on the petition, that just seems somewhat abnormal. I know you've looked into this. Is this something that other metro areas in Tennessee cover for their employees?
I believe I heard yesterday that Chattanooga and Knoxville both already have it, but their insurance is set up differently. On theirs, the person would pay 25%. On ours, they pay $1,000, and that's it.
So hypothetically, if you go and work for the city of Nashville, and you wanted gender reassignment, and it was too pricey for you under your current employer or too pricey for you as an individual, you could then be employed by Metro Nashville, if this had gone through, and then pay $1,000 and have the taxpayers, myself, yourself included, pay for your gender reassignment care and coverage.
That was actually the plan. Most of the people that spoke yesterday were saying on behalf of employees that they needed to retain or future employees that this needed to be a benefit to get them to come to work for Metro.
I mean, this isn't San Francisco, right? I understand that Nashville is a blue city. I understand that it's creative, but you cannot honestly tell me, not you, but these people cannot honestly tell me that there are that many people either working for the city or that want to work for the city that their stipulation is the city, the taxpayers have to pay for their gender reassignment. I mean, we already know that the transgender community is a fraction of the population. So the fact that this is like such a demand, that this was, put so much emphasis on this demand, like somehow we wouldn't retain enough employees if not for this, I mean, that seems a little beyond to me.
Very weak. And the reason that I'm in this council race in the first place is because of a poorly promoted rezoning plan. And it almost got through and put 49 homes on a small piece of land. And that's the exact reason that I was speaking out yesterday, is because I don't think anybody knew about this. And they had, I think, 9 speakers. I was the only one that spoke against it. But you think 8-1 or 9-1, that would be like 90% of the people wanting it if you're doing the percentages that way. It's more like nobody knew about it except for them. So talking about them pushing it is the exact point.
Yeah, I mean, I got it as a tip because people were not talking about it. And this is a really hot topic right now.
Yes.
I mean, across the nation, not just in Nashville. Of course, in Tennessee, it's also a conversation because we know we have our Tennessee child protection law where you can't sexy dance in front of children. Gay, straight, bi, trans, doesn't matter. You can't sexy dance in front of children. That was just struck down. So this is a conversation nationally, but this is a conversation in Tennessee. Of course, it's a conversation in Nashville. But the fact that this mayor allegedly was trying to ramrod this through without the taxpayers even understanding that they would soon be on the hook for this, it to me is just another reason why we have to get rid of John Cooper. I mean, COVID was one thing and then he kind of has been able to skate by, but this I think would infuriate and anger a lot of Nashvillians. You said that this is probably going to come up again. What can you tell us about the likelihood, how this would come up and how the taxpayers can be more aware of what they could potentially be paying for?
At least 2 of the people came off the board or come off at the end of this month, and they only have one meeting a month. So they're done. Depending on who comes back on, they may get a better vote next time. And based on the mayor, it may come up soon or not at all, the next mayor.
Do you think, and I'm just asking you to speculate, I mean, you're not Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal, you're just a Nashvilleian who wants to advocate for the taxpayer. Thank you, we appreciate it. I'm obviously conservative. I'm wondering if the people of Nashville, Davidson County, if they were aware of this, do you think that there would be more of a hoopla surrounding it?
From the feedback I was getting from anybody that I talked to about it, no one supported it.
Right.
So I don't think it would even be close. I think the room would have been super full yesterday, and there would have been 100 people speaking out against it rather than 8-1 or 9-1 as it was.
So for the average civilian out there who doesn't make a habit of reading the minutes or going and looking up the agenda, how would you suggest that people stay informed about what's going on so when this does come up again, they can be aware and they can make their thoughts known?
I don't really know because, like I said, the poorly promoted plan on the rezoning, it seems to be the way they do things. They don't want controversial things to come out. So they just poorly promote them, and then you wake up the next day and you see it on the news. If I hadn't and other people hadn't have gotten informed, or really the board members did a great job. They were super well informed. They were well read on the whole subject, and I was proud. I thought in the beginning this would be 9-1 or 10-0, and this thing would pass easily. But then I started listening to some of the board members. You could tell by the demeanor of some of them, they didn't really like the idea. But others, you couldn't tell until they started speaking. And one in particular went through 6 points that he had researched to find this whole thing. And the last one was the financial part. It's about $125,000 to $140,000 for the surgery. But the worst part is that he talked to 2 urologists, and you have to have a lifetime of post-care.
Yeah.
Because the surgery may work aesthetically, but it doesn't work internally.
Yeah, no kidding. So you're saying, okay, gender reassignment, if you go through with the whole shebang, right, you're talking over $100,000 easily. There can't be that many Metro Nashville city employees that make $100,000 a year as their salary. So to me, to dangle this in front of people, you're just going to get people who want to get their gender reassignment covered.
Yes.
I'm glad that I'm hot on this trail now because I am like a dog with a bone on it and I will not let it go. And please, if this comes up again, let me know because I will sound the alarm. I will make sure that my fellow Nashvillians know because this is just unacceptable. It doesn't mean you're anti-gay, anti-trans, anti-whatever, but my God, I'm not going to be paying for a $100,000 surgery that requires a lifetime of care for our city employees. I mean, that's just ludicrous. If Google wants to do that, if Amazon wants to do that, have fun. But Metro Nashville, I don't think our blood is that rich. I'm sorry.
One lady spoke. She said that anonymously, 24 people had reached out wanting to have the surgery. They were just employees. This also covers spouses, partners, and children. They did try to amend the amendment halfway through, saying it would only be for 18 plus. But the same guy that I was talking about earlier made the point that your frontal cortex doesn't fully develop until you're 25 years old. So 25 should be at least the limit there, but
plus it's illegal in Tennessee.
It isn't,
now.
I know, and they didn't address that.
Yeah, it's illegal in Tennessee. You can't do that. But my God, I mean, now you go become a Nashville City employee. That the benefits are endless. Your whole family can get a sex change. I don't think so. Thank goodness this failed.
Yeah.
Thank goodness this failed.
Their main point was it was a recruiting tool for retaining and bringing in new employees. Almost everybody that spoke, of the 8 or 9 that spoke after me, all said that. And my point, I wrote a speech, a 2-minute speech sitting there in the front row because they said you have 2 minutes to speak. If they voted to let us speak at all, which they did. And the first line of mine was basically, without the public knowing about this, it's taxation without representation.
Absolutely. Last question for you. If this does come up again, can members of the concerned public, do we get 2 minutes to speak? Because I'm very good at condensing my thoughts into 2 minutes.
They allowed 10 people to speak for 2 minutes, up to, and I think 9. I'm not sure. After a while, it was the same kind of argument the whole time, so I lost track of 8 or 9. But 8 or 9 people did express themselves in a different way as far as wanting this to happen.
All right, well, I will be there next time with bells on in that case. I will be standing there ready to go like it's SeaWorld, all right? I'm ready to go. Thank you for sounding the alarm on this, for explaining this to Nashvillians. I know that this is a local issue, but it's really not, and I would encourage everybody out there, whether you live in a city or a state that's conservative, liberal, I don't care, make sure that you pay attention to what your city council is doing and what they're paying for, because they just might be having you pay for things you're even unaware of, like almost happened to us here in Nashville. Thank you, Jeff, so much, and good luck to you. We need some great representation.
Thank you for having me.